was a New England typhoon this morning, right? From what I remember. Okay, so has everybody had their little things stamped and you all put them in the gold basket, bingo basket, right? Okay, who's gonna win? Okay. Who's gonna install the Ring doorbell when you win? We learned some great tips today. I think we should have another round of applause for all our speakers. And I'm not going to tell you that these guys aren't professionals, but we heard from the professionals earlier. We're going to hear now from your fellow realtors in the Cape. So it is an honor for me to introduce these folks to you, although I'm guessing you already know who they are. Let's see. Now, you're going to have to bear with me because this is an impressive list. We're going to start with Chris. You good with that? No, and first of all, let's give these guys some credit because nobody likes to sit there while somebody reads a page about them. But I really do think this is important and it'll give you some insight as why we've invited these folks to be here. So Chris Rhinesmith, top broker in Chatham for the past 15 years. 2004 to 2008, that's right. Co-owner of, go right ahead, he deserves it. People say to me, how long have you been in business? I said 20 years, and I said, oh, I got 30 years, and I got this special pin, and Chris has been in business so long. I said, you know what, after 30 years, I think we should all get mental health benefits. So Chris, God bless you. Co-owner of Pine Acres Realty, an extensive experience in residential, real estate, and finance. Chris is a former director of investments at Oppenheimer in Boston and was the top producing broker on the Cape in 2018. That's the whole Cape? That's amazing. And he has held this position on 6 previous occasions and set Cape-wide historical high of $125 million in annual sales for 2016. He has sold over $850 million in real estate for 7 years, 2012 through 15, 16, and 18. Chris was named one of the Real Trends Best Real Estate Agents in America in its national ranking report. In 2009, 11, and 16, he ranked among the top 100 leading real estate professionals in the country in Wall Street Journal survey covering over 7,000 brokerage firms and Association of Realtors. Chris was also recognized by Banker and Tradesman as a new leader through an award that names the top performers under 40 years of age in Massachusetts industries. I'm not done yet. Quoted in national, global, and local publications like the DuPont Registry, Financial Times, and Boston Business Journal, as well as a former panelist for Christie's International Real Estate and at the MAR convention. Chris is one of the top real estate experts on Cape Cod. He is strongly networked in the industry through his affiliations with Christie's International Real Estate and the who's who in luxury real estate. Please join me in welcoming Chris Rhinesmith.
I did a great job.
And your mother did an excellent job. Okay. Let's see. Paul. And, oh, geez, this is going to be tough. You guys, nobody knows Paul, I'm sure. So, bear with me while I introduce this newbie to you. Paul Grover is a co-founder of Robert Paul Properties and consistently ranks as one of the top luxury real estate agents in the United States. Since starting his career in 1981, he has personally handled over $1.5 billion with a B in sales and consistently brokers some of the most expensive real estate transactions in Massachusetts. Growing up between Boston and Cape Cod, his in-depth market knowledge is rooted in lifelong passion for the area's most significant properties. In 1994, Paul co-founded Kinlan Grover Real Estate with Robert Kinlan and subsequently led the firm to tremendous growth before being acquired by GMAC several years later. In 2009, he and Robert Kinlan launched Robert Paul Properties. Not once, but twice, right? Lightning strikes not once, but twice here. A boutique agency specializing in high-end niche markets throughout Massachusetts and has been named the top New England real estate company by Inc. 500. Year after year, Paul's success marketing highly exclusive portfolio of residences from Greater Boston to Cape Cod has led to the accumulation of an influential client list that prioritizes discretion, integrity, and comprehensive service. As an industry leader, his expertise is often cited in such publications as the New York Times, the Boston Globe, and the Wall Street Journal, and Forbes. Please join me in welcoming Paul Grover.
And my friend Chris helped me write that. So
Yes. Fabulous. Okay, next we have Brett. How you doing over there, Brett? Brett has no name tag, but it could be anybody sitting next to me. I don't know who it is, but we're going to say it's Brett. Brett was raised on the Cape. Now, do you guys call it the Cape or you call it Cape Cod?
The Cape.
The Cape? Okay. Because I'm saying to myself, oh, I've been saying it wrong all along. Brett, raised on the Cape, joined Kinlan Grover in 2012 and has been one of the top producing agents year over year. During his junior year at St. Michael's College, he spent a semester studying Spanish culture and civilization at the University of Granada in southern Spain. This experience sparked his interest in exploring the world. After earning his bachelor, I think I went to Bermuda after my graduation, the world. After earning his bachelor's in 2001, he worked to travel. He has visited over 16 countries on 5 continents and spent 5 years working and living in, I'm going to ask you to pronounce it, Mazatlan, Mexico. Brett's ability to work with people from diverse backgrounds has made him one of Kinlan Grover's fastest growing agents. He has lived in Provincetown full-time for 7 years and works as a sales associate, handling residential and commercial sales along with seasonal rentals. We're proud to announce that he recently made Real Trends America's Best Rankings for 2017 to be included in the ranking. Agents must have closed, get ready for this, at least 50 transactions or $20 million in closed sales volume in 2017. Currently, he is the top producing agent in Provincetown, having sold, oh God, I love it when they give me all the numbers, $25,488,000 in real estate in 2018 with an additional $2.6 million under agreement as of January of this year. Whether you're investing, renting, or selling, we're guessing that Brett's going to help you get your job done with premier service. Please join me in welcoming Brett Holmes. And to round out our panel, last but certainly not least, we have Samantha Chin Reynolds of Cove Road Real Estate. So far, so good. Samantha, are you ready for this? Is a 3rd generation of women in her family to be a realtor on Cape Cod. She grew up in the business, to say the least. She is educated, well-spoken, and well-traveled. She received her bachelor's degree in sociology with a concentration in globalization and social justice with a minor in psychology. I think we all need a minor in psychology. While being educated from before she could walk on the ins and outs of Cape Cod and the real estate market. She comes from a long line of investors and developers and is following steadfast in their footsteps with investment properties of her own, using her knowledge to guide her and other investors in the Cape Cod market. Born and raised in the Cape, she has a well-rounded perspective of what it's like to live here on the Cape. Whether you're buying or selling or looking to invest in a second home, she will strive to meet your needs and your expectations. Again, please join me in welcoming Samantha Chin Reynolds. Actually, I'm impressed with everything I just heard, so that concludes today's program. So, quite impressive, guys. Thanks for joining us. So, you guys are probably in awe, as I am, and these guys are probably horrified because nobody likes to sit on a stool in front of a couple of hundred or 100 or so people and answer questions. And we didn't tell them the questions up front. All right, that's a lie. We gave them an idea of what we were going to talk about today. And if you don't mind, we're going to dig right in with some questions. And I would like to ask you guys, are you seeing a shift in the market? I'm going to let you rotate. If you don't want to answer, you go, this isn't a truth or dare or, lose a bet type of thing. So if anyone has an opinion, you chime in. If not, we can move on to the next question. So what are you seeing in your specific marketplace as far as a shift, if any? Chris is looking at me.
I think that with the amount of information that is available on the internet to all of our clients, buyers I would say specifically, the real-time flow of, you know, new listings coming on the market is something that I'm trying to get a handle on actually. Typically I come to the office and I check MLS and see what the new listings are. I had a call last week from a client in Ohio who saw something that had come on Zillow. And I typically don't check Zillow, but clearly between these, you know, coming on the markets and BizBos, it's another source of information that I think we need to pay attention to. That's something that I think is changing, and at least it's changing the way I do things. So I'm looking at Zillow and I'm looking at MLS because there's stuff out there that clearly our buyers are seeing before we are.
Right, yeah, we're no longer the holders of the data anymore, and I think we understand that, but you're saying you're actually looking in more than one place, and our primary resource would be the MLS, but you're looking at maybe exactly like you said, what your buyers are saying.
And as a result of, you know, getting calls from people, you know, typically you think that you know these properties, and he mentioned an address, and I'm saying that's not an MLS, but sure enough it was on Zillow, so that's something that's, I see as.
So how people are searching and getting their data. What about you guys? What are you seeing for a shift in business trends or market?
I've noticed that my clients are getting younger.
Okay, you're not getting older.
I'm getting younger. And along the lines of what Chris said, I would say they're smarter, faster. Definitely they do have the information. So I've experienced.
Now is that because, and I'm not trying to be smart, but are they literally more educated are they a higher level of education, or because of what's out there in the tools?
I would say more educated to what's going on in the market and what's available, and histories of properties and town areas and other sales and who bought, who sold, who's in the community, whose company went public.
Function of social media maybe? Yeah.
Information, yeah.
Yeah, information's out there. Don't you love it when your client tells you how long it's been on the market? Brett, what are you seeing?
I'm relatively new to this, so just the shift in the market. I thought about it, and I think from a agent standpoint, one of the things that I see in my market on the Outer Cape, there's a shift towards most agencies working with professional photographers. If you don't know Jonathan Watkins, I suggest that you get his business card before you leave today. He's excellent.
Jonathan, there he is with the camera, right? Yep, thank you.
You know, 3D virtual tour, a lot of things that, you know, a few years ago you didn't see much of is becoming quite common. So, you know, I suggest when you're going out on listings that you look at what your competitors are doing and be, you know, if not on par, if not better.
Yeah, and Valerie had some great tips on how to do that as well earlier today. What do you think?
I've noticed that you don't get as much time to know your clients when they're buying a property, because things are going so fast, and they usually come to you with property. They're like, I want to buy this. I had a woman Pond Front. She's like, I want to buy this property, and then she's like, well, why don't you know what I want? Like, well, I just met you. Like, so you have to kind of cram in that personal aspect a lot faster than when I started not so long ago.
Okay.
And you know what I would add to what Samantha just said, when I first started in the business, again, we had all the information. The people literally would come to us, meet at the office, and get in my car, and we would drive around, and you would have the opportunity to get to know them. But these days, it seems like I just meet people at listings. They don't want to drive with me. They're on their phone, and they may have kids with them.
Hi, we heard about you. We read your bio. That's all I need to know.
Yeah.
Like,
Oftentimes they don't come to the office anymore.
So they might be checking you out online before they even see you in person and making that decision. And then you don't have really a chance to make a good first impression because it's already been made, perhaps, right?
Exactly, yeah.
And for me, that's all I've ever known. You know, I rarely put anybody in my car. Oftentimes, some sellers, especially in the second home market, everything's done remotely. You know, sometimes people are listing and I never meet them face to face. Most recently, I had a buyer that bought remotely from California, sight unseen. So, yeah, to me, that's common. You know, hearing this, it's shifted over the years. It's interesting.
How many of you have sold a house or helped somebody buy a house and have never met the client in person? Yeah, look at their hands. That's amazing. It's incredible. So I guess that's going to go to the technology. We're gonna go back and forth between questions that are gonna make your head hurt, then we're gonna make it lighten it up a little bit so you can absorb it, and then we're gonna get back into some of our media questions. But yeah, when we move on later on about technology and things like that, maybe you can share with us how you bridge that gap now that, as Paul said, we're not driving around with people in our cars anymore. All right, here's a good one. What time do you guys shut your phone off at night, or do you ever?
I never shut my phone off.
All right, we have a never shut the phone off.
I don't shut mine off.
No?
I
Anyone?
screen them after 8 o'clock.
Yeah. Chris is like, what phone?
I don't have a hard, fast rule. I live off Cape, so I drive an hour around, each way during the day. So on my way home from 5 to 6 or 6 to 7, I usually try to do the calls then.
Yep.
And then once I get home, I've got 4 kids. I really don't pick up the phone unless there's an offer or there's something working. And then I'll check my phone before I go to bed and in the morning, but I'm not married to it once I get home at all.
So I hear that there's maybe a rule, maybe there isn't, but clearly there's some screening going on and there's balance, right?
Really?
No? I made that up for the record.
Try to.
You try to achieve some balance, right?
Try.
Yeah. How do you handle calls at, 9 o'clock? If the client says to you, can I call you at 9? Do you say no, or you say, if I'm available, I'll pick up the phone?
Depends on the client.
Depends on the client. You heard it here. Well, and we laugh about that, but it's about how you're being treated, right?
Sure.
If you're being treated respectfully and you understand that your client respects your time, you might be more apt. But if the time isn't
Yeah, some
used-
people take advantage of it.
Yes.
But we're the ones that allow them to take advantage of it.
Did you hear that? We're maybe allowing people to take advantage of it. All right. Okay, so how about this one? Get your pens ready. Would you be able to provide us with one tip, or maybe several tips, that you do religiously to grow your business? Grow your business, right? These guys are like, I'm not telling them anything. Get your pens out.
I would say that religiously, I spend a lot of time networking and just working on the relationship. I think that the big difference is taking it from a transactional viewpoint to a relationship viewpoint, and I think that's what's going to keep us all in front of our clients. So I spend a lot of time, dinners or drinks or just staying in front of people, and it's not always to talk about business. A lot of times it's not talking about business. And I think if you can establish a relationship and work on that, then you're more inclined to have them come back to you for the next one. So I'd say networking and relationship building is absolutely what I spend the most time on.
I would say along the same lines, staying in touch, that's my big thing. Customers for life, and always realize that there will be opportunities for me to provide service, but then for people to refer back to me, so that you just never know where it's going to come from. But if you've made a relationship, don't lose it.
You worked hard for it. Right?
For me, I realize I'm an introvert in an extrovert business, so networking's not my thing. I find comfort just getting out of the office, going home, and being there with my dog Louie. However,
So Louie's probably better at networking than you are, right?
He's much better. I think for me, it's developing each relationship and doing right by a client and knowing that they are going to be, if it's a buyer, a future seller, or a source of a referral. So develop each relationship.
I guess what I do is I always get back to someone, and it doesn't have to be the full answer at the time. If I'm busy, I just say, hi, I've got your email, and I'm at a meeting or I'm going to a showing. I'll get back to you soon, just so they know that I'm receiving what they're saying and that I'll be there for them soon.
Yeah, that's great. I heard a theme of relationships, and we're going to get back to your response, because that's a unique thought, right? Actually get back to somebody. I think it's amazing, but how many people in this room have chosen not to do business with somebody because they just never responded or didn't even acknowledge that you reached out, right? And sometimes it's a referral. You call and say, hi, Samantha gave me your name and told me to give you a call, and then these people still don't return your call, right? So something as simple as that is one of the practices that you do religiously, and it helps you grow your business. To the three before you, can you expand a little bit on relationships? We heard about networking. Brett, I know you're not big on, and we're not passing judgment, because you spend all day with people, it can be tiring. Tell us a little bit about how you build those relationships. Maybe a specific activity. Is it through sponsoring? Is it through a joint interest in a sporting event or something?
I find people come to me, again, being relatively new, I don't have much to compare it to. Large source of my business, I looked at it last year, about 70+% of it was through past clients, whether they were repeat or they were referring somebody. So going out and getting it, I've done their traditional sending out mailings and things like that, but really to me, it's doing right by the buyer or seller that develops that relationship, which grows the business down the line.
70%. Did you guys hear that?
Yeah.
You need to take his card for afterwards. 70% of your business comes from repeat clients, and you said you're relatively new in the business, so
Yeah.
that's huge. So Paul, what are you doing?
Well, I've always been mindful of the fact that we're very lucky because we're in a business that people like to talk about real estate wherever we go. People really love, especially real estate on Cape Cod and beautiful real estate. So, one of the things that I like to do is just with my phone, if I'm in a neighborhood or I'm at a listing or across the street from somebody's house, just take a picture of it and send it to them. So it's just a way of keeping in touch. I know I sent you recently a picture of a new listing, Chris. That
Did the police
just,
call this stalking or?
No, but they like it.
So these are people that are off Cape that have,
Yeah.
where their houses might be rented, right, seasonal? What, I'm serious, it's
People
like
that I've
stalking.
have bought or sold or rented or just,
It's a great idea.
sphere of influence, just stay in touch with them.
Because I think it was Valerie said, call it their home, was it you, or am I making that up? Call it a home and not their house. So this is along the lines of that, here's your home, right?
Yeah, and sometimes I do that, home, not a house, and sometimes I'll just do price change instead of price reduction.
Right.
But if I'm talking to a buyer, I say there's a price reduction.
Right. So,
The
all the
sellers,
delivery,
I'm
yeah.
just gonna send the change for them.
Right, oh gosh. What do you think? You said, well, you do not a lot of networking events, food.
Well, I think it's the same as Brett. It's really just whatever you can do to help establish a relationship, and a lot of it is face to face, right, instead of just emails or phone calls. And so I really try to stay in front of people. So when, like you said, when they're thinking about buying or selling or referring, that they're thinking of you and not the next space that shows up on Realtor.com or Zillow or Trulia.
How important do you guys think it is to be involved in the community?
I think it's very important where I am.
Like, I don't have kids, but I see people that are very successful that have kids, they're on their kids' softball teams or whatever it is, the hockey teams, and anybody speak to that? Well, they're not on the team, but I've got the heckling group in front of me. Can somebody help me out?
I think just a more personal way of getting to know people. So,
Yeah.
I think, one thing I would say is I never tell people I'm in real estate, right? Because I think as soon as you start with that and you lead with that, it almost is like you're selling from the get-go. And so if you can establish relationships with people, and then it comes up organically, what do you do? And you're out there and you're in front of, whether it's, like you said, sports teams, it's just a more, I think, genuine way of letting people know what you do, and I think it typically works out well.
Very interesting. Everybody likes to buy, but nobody likes to be sold, right? Did you hear the tip? Don't come right out with, hey, what do you do, right?
It'll come up eventually, right?
Yeah. All right, great tips. Okay, so we're gonna back off a little bit. How about this one? Have you ever lost a listing? Buyer or seller? You just got flat out fired. Or they said, no, I'm sorry, we went with somebody else.
Oh.
Both. Okay, you're gonna start.
I gotta leave it up to that.
Oh, you're both? Brett, you wanna start?
Yeah, I've lost buyers and I've lost sellers. So, or potential, sellers and potential listers. So
What do you do? How do you recover
You
from that?
bow out gracefully.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't take pictures of their home like Paul does and send them.
I think on the list side, I'll say rarely. On the list side, it's just part of the business, and if you're not losing listings, you're not trying hard enough, in my opinion. You bail out gracefully. You thank them for inviting you out. Compliment the agent that they selected if you can do it genuinely, and let them know that you're available in the future if they need any help. Is how I handle it on the list side. Rarely do I lose a buyer to another agent. When it does, it depends on the situation, but it happens, and you just move on. Can't dwell on that.
Yeah, great advice. Samantha, how about you?
I don't
She's gonna pass on that one. We've all got that one story.
Okay.
Okay.
You know where I'm going with this too. I'll make everybody feel better about losing listings. So I had a property in Chatham, that I listed for $25 million, probably 4 years ago. And at the time, most expensive house in Chatham and the most expensive property on the Cape for quite a while. And I had it for 4 years, started at 25, went to 20, went to 17 and a half. And in the fall, the sellers called, who were very great people and good clients, and said, you know what, 4 years, time to move on, nothing personal. So I lost the listing to Paul, which I guess if you're gonna lose it to anybody, you're happy it's him. And within 2 weeks, probably, first guy in the door buys the house, closes in 30 days. So anybody that's lost the listing, for 14.7 million, so anybody that's lost the listing, hopefully you feel better after that one.
Is that a story? How many people have had that happen, right? Right, are you trying to get price changes, they don't give it to you, they fire you, then they hire somebody else and drop it by 30%. So, Paul, how did you handle that when you got that listing? Did you just, what was that? I mean, you earned it.
Yeah, you know, but Chris was his gracious self. I had intended to call Chris to let him know what was going on, but he actually reached out to me first, and he predicted that was going to happen, actually. So, you know, sometimes you get lucky. It was an agent from Kinlan Grover who had the buyer, and there was a buyer who had been looking for a long time, but it was all about price.
Yeah.
And everybody knew that, but the seller wasn't ready to hear that, Richard. So, you know, I think most of us know if you can be the second broker,
Right.
it can be a really good thing.
But I guess the point here is that with the experience we have and even the folks that are newer to the business that have new and maybe some new and fresh ideas, they go in with a different perspective. It happens to all of us, right? And so what do you take out of a bad experience, or what do you try to, anything you've taken out of a bad experience? I mean, was there anything you would have done differently, or?
You know, it's a good question, because Paul and I actually talked about this, and I think for me, part of it was price, but it, you know, with a little asterisk, you know, on this one, $25 million, I mean, it might as well have been $100 million. I mean, it was a huge number for our market. So you just didn't, there were literally no comps for it, so those are hard. And as Paul said, it just took time. In this case, the seller just had to realize that. So, so I guess, you know, if I had a takeaway on it, pricing is always critical, for sure. But that was a tough one, just because it was, even if I had all the information, it was hard to price it.
Sure.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, one of the things that I've learned after all these years in the business, this is something that I've finally figured out. I've been involved in 3 sales within the last 2 years that went for record-setting prices, yet in all 3 cases, the homeowner lost about half of what they invested. So what it showed me is there's a certain amount that a community or a region or a state will bring, no matter how much the homeowner or the person who built the house put into it. So it's a lesson, and it's something where you can advise your clients as they're getting in and building. Because I think when people are building their dream house, they think, well, we're going to be here a long time. They, on the real high end, they have the resources to do it, but I don't think any of them are looking to lose half of their investment either.
So education, going in, right? Brett, anything else, or you
You
good
know,
on that?
I think when a buyer or seller moves on with somebody else, you just take a quick moment to look back, kind of consider what you might have been able to do differently, and move forward.
Yeah, it's hard not to take it personally, but I think you try to pull something out of it professionally, add it to your repertoire, and move on. Or at least that's what the restraining order tells me I have to do. You're thinking, I think she's serious. Alrighty, here we go, moving on. Alright, so, one of my favorite questions. App, hardware, software, you name it, what's your favorite new technology? And it can be new to you, it doesn't have to be new to the business, but what's your new technology? Samantha, you still thinking over there?
I love my phone. I just recently got a Google phone, and it's connected to everything Google I have, and I do a lot of my own photography, and it's just so easy, and everything's right there, and it just, I guess it works the same way Apple, but I'm like allergic to Apple. It hates me, I hate it. But Google has been amazing. Gmail, attaching documents, retrieving documents from wherever you might be. and it's very reliable, the filters are fantastic, and it's easy to use, and I love Google, everything
That's a
about
pretty
Google.
good testimonial. Anybody else have the Google phone? No? Well, we got one back there, you got a fan. All right, who else wants to share their favorite technology?
I'm pretty basic. Google Calendar,
Yeah.
Gmail, DocuSign. The three of those would be pretty difficult.
So for the folks in the room that may not have some type of online calendar, the benefit is just being able to find your stuff whenever, right?
Yeah. I'm a visual learner, so it's all there.
Some folks are still clinging to that address book, right? Or that, and there's nothing wrong with it as long as it works for you, but we've got an adopter over here of the technology. Paul, what are you thinking?
Well, I think my new technology is the cell phone.
The cell phone. Cutting edge.
But you know what? Seriously, I was like a really early adopter. But the reason I like the cell phone is I think a lot is lost in text messages or in emails in terms of how things are misconstrued. And if you're having a live conversation with somebody, you can you hear their tone of voice, or if something's going in the wrong direction, I think you're much more opportunity to steer it in the right direction. And I've seen, you know, with writing, it's just a very absolute or black and white, and we know that real estate's emotional, and so that you can have that conversation. The other thing that I think people should really be aware of is lawyers and lawsuits. And if anybody's ever been involved in any type of dispute, the first thing these days that they'll go after is every single text message you ever sent involving that property or email. And people, when they're texting, they're very quick to say things almost like it's a banter or a conversation. And you need to be careful of that. So I would rather have it in a conversation.
Has anybody ever had their own text messages fed back to them? Nobody has ever given you a print screen of what you said and shot it back to you? Yeah, a couple of people back there. Yeah, so, I mean, it's a good, sometimes it's beneficial to have a thread of what you've been discussing, but to Paul's point, you can't get any indication of which way your person you're communicating with is leaning, and Paul has said that he's been able to sometimes redirect in a phone conversation that you can't do in text or email. So, it sounds like this is our favorite old technology with this group. They're not gonna take any unnecessary risks and nothing flashy. We're gonna say with tried and true. What do you think?
I'm gonna take a pass on this one.
Yes.
For these reasons, I'm still on a BlackBerry. True story.
It works.
I am.
Yep.
I am not on any social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, never been. And I'm probably the only guy in the room paying $28 to AOL for my email account. So tech is not my thing.
But it works. So the takeaway from this question is, you don't have to be buried in the latest gadgets to be successful in your business. So what a refreshing message from somebody who's tied up with all the latest technologies. So let's move on to some of our more experienced agents, and then we're gonna have a question for some of our newer agents. You know, to the experienced guys here, how do you manage your time with all the listings and the volume, and then with all the agents that you're working with, either with, you know, in your own teams or in your own offices? How do you handle that? Because, and here's what I'm thinking, and maybe you're all thinking it too. You know, if I'm not doing $80 million or whatever the huge number is, maybe you go in and say, oh, I'm going to give you more personalized service because I have one of 20 transactions or whatever. But at some point, the human breaks in two and can't possibly handle a tremendous amount of volume. So how do you handle all that, everything that's pulling at you?
So for me, on the business side, I have a partner, and so at Pine Acres, I'm a co-owner, and my partner is a great manager, so I don't have to deal with any of those management type issues, which I'm not good at all. So that's the easy part. In my own business, I made a decision probably 12 years ago to bring somebody else on to help me. And for anybody that's considered or struggling with whether you should do that or not, best decision I ever made, right? So, you know, it's a hard decision because you're giving up money, but there's no way that I could be where I am today without help. So I brought somebody on 12 years ago, I brought a second person on 5 years ago, and that made all the difference. So that's an easy decision for me. Anybody considering it, I would totally recommend it. And for anybody here that knows the two people I work with, they're better than I am, they're smarter, they're better looking than I am, they're nicer than I am, so.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Totally true, and I know you, I'm looking at people from Chatham who know that. But I think that, surround yourself with people that compliment you and that are better than you, and that's the only way I've been able to be sitting here, for sure.
Yeah, you set the example. Paul, how do you handle it all?
Really good support staff, starting with several assistants and one assistant, Melissa, who's been with me for almost 15 years, and talk about somebody smarter and does a better job between Melissa and a good friend of Brett's who joined me about a year ago, who has tremendous writing skills and can help me keep up with correspondence and getting materials out, so it makes me look good. Really particular, right? But, someone who really just loves grammar, so that's good. In terms of the company and running our company, same thing, really. And it goes back to all the way that I see a lot of Kinlan Grover people. It goes back to a lot of the Kinlan Grover days. Look at Andy, how we work together, or Tara, just having the right people running it. So for me and for Bob Kinlan, that always worked because our real love was to be in the trenches and with buyers and sellers. So just having the right people around you.
So you guys hearing, I think what I'm hearing you say is that do what you love and let somebody else do what maybe you're not great at, or maybe what isn't your passion. And even though, like Chris said, you take a hit, maybe a little bit, it allows you to bring yourself to the next level. Anybody out there considering, well, you don't have to raise your hand, but sometimes you're at that point where you're not quite sure if you're going to bring on an assistant or a team or something like that, and these guys here pretty much said that's what you contribute a lot of your success to, right?
Definitely.
Do you guys want to weigh in that?
I would say I'm at a point, I'm considering that. I'm just trying to figure out how to make it work, because it does get to a point where, when you first start in real estate and you look at people that are up here, place them on a pedestal, and when you start to work your way up, you realize that it comes with personal sacrifices. So, at the end of the day, it's just a zero in your bank account. You have to enjoy your life. So finding that work-life balance is important. And I would say at year 5, I'm at that point of trying to figure out, okay, how do we work smarter, not harder?
Good point. Yeah. I'm part of a team with Jeff Cusack, who most of you must know. And we have a small office, Cobra Real Estate. Laura's my broker owner. And it's just surrounding yourself with people who support you and really want the best for you and who will help you succeed.
Great advice, thank you. So let's talk to some of the folks with not perhaps as many decades of experience, but we'll start at this end. You guys, so you didn't always have, 5 years, you didn't always have a ton of listings or maybe a ton of business. So what did you do with your downtime? Sometimes people say, I'm really slow, and then they go, they go visit somebody or do something. What did you guys do saying, I'm committing to this business, but I need to fill when I'm not listing and selling with a productive activity?
So my background, I'm 3 generations of real estate people, basically in my family. My grandfather was a developer, my grandmother was a broker. And my mother went into sales and investments, but as I was growing up, she was in investments. So I grew up in the real estate world, basically in a really investment-heavy family. So when I branched into sales, I decided to do that in college because I was kind of tired of being in the investment part, and I was like, I'm going to be on my own, and I'm going to do sales. And so when I was actually just trying to start up my business, I started at 22, and I bought my first investment property. So whenever I'm not selling real estate, I'm finding rentals for people or just taking care of my investment properties, which I now have 3 of. So that's what I do with my time.
So real estate related activity?
Yeah, just all real estate all the time.
Yeah. Or what about you?
So I answered an ad in the paper. I never thought I'd get into real estate. I started off as a rental agent in the P-Town office, basically as a means to stay in the community. I went there for a summer. In the fall, I thought I was going to leave, and it didn't happen. They were looking for a rental agent, so that's how I started. In hindsight, it helped me develop relationships that grew the sales business years later. So it wasn't intentional, but hindsight's 20/20, and I look back at it. Anybody who's new in the room, I would suggest, treat it like a full-time job. Tether yourself to that desk in the office. Listen as much as possible. The rentals forced me to be in the office. Through that, it helped me develop relationships with future buyers and sellers. Just kind of doing a little bit of everything, aligning yourself with maybe some of the agents that are not so motivated anymore, or just at a point in their life where they want to do different things, and helping them out and learning from them. I just think the key piece is a lot of people come into the business, and also don't focus on the money. I think everybody comes into the business focusing on the money, and probably the worst thing you can do. Focus on being present, focus on the process, focus on developing those relationships, and the rest will come naturally.
Good advice. Okay, here's a tricky question. Tell us in the room, because some of you might be from is there actually a mid-Cape? There's the upper Cape, there's the mid-Cape, and there's the lower Cape, right?
Outer Cape.
And the who?
The Outer Cape.
The Outer Cape. What's that, the islands?
No.
What's just everything off?
It's up here.
All right, thanks for the enlightening me. Way too much information. No. I clearly need to be schooled on this. Know your audience. I shouldn't have asked that question. But anyways, buyer and seller clients. Who wants to talk about, the difference? And of course, we're being kind, but is there a different need or want or style to Upper Cape versus Lower Cape? More vacation, more primary, more investment? What are you saying? Or could you not even say that? Is it just a wild card?
I mean, for me, in 5 years, I once took a listing in Yarmouth, and after driving 45 minutes for a showing and having them cancel, I referred it out. So I stay pretty local. Predominantly, it's P-Town with a little bit of borough. Every once in a while, maybe Wellfleet. That's about it. For me, it's all second home owners. In 5 years, I have only sold 2 properties to people that are going to be year-round residents. So that's my market. That's what I'm used to. A lot of virtual conversations to start. Sometimes it's developing that relationship over the phone with somebody in California, Florida, or Europe that you might not meet face-to-face for 6 months, which I think goes back to always following up. And there was a question coming up that, if I knew then what I know now, not all buyers and sellers are prepared to perform. I think, when I first started, I figured, they were going to talk to me, they were going to do it soon. I always keep an eye on what's happening in town, and 1 year I added up about $5 million in business that went to other agents with people that I had talked to at one point, but didn't follow up with them. So, if you're getting started, or if you're seasoned and you're not good at following up, start now, because there's money in your contact list that's going to go elsewhere.
Okay, so we've heard about 5 years, 2 people that were year-round. Who handles something that might be more year-round, or is even that a thing?
I do a lot of year-round. I do a lot of.
And what area are you focused in?
I'm like mid-Cape. I'm like Brewster, Orleans, East Hamish area. But I think it's probably because my age and I grew up here. So I think that every town has a different type of person and personality. And I don't know if that's just because I'm like local to the core, but usually when I meet a buyer, I get to know them, and then they're like, oh, well, I'm looking in like Eastham, and I'm like, well, you're really more of a Brewster person. So like, well, look in Eastham, and maybe you see a couple over here, and they're like, wow, we love this area. And you're like, oh, interesting. But yeah, there's a difference. And then I do a lot of first-time home buyers. So a lot of my friends that I grew up with are coming back to the Cape and starting families, and they want to be here, and I try to help them be here.
So it's about educating the buyers to what the market offers,
And
which
the
is more
process.
important to be local knowledge, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have 6 listings on the Cape. No, I just I've not. But I'm listening to you guys, and I don't even know all the differences, which just reinforces the fact that, you know, even from community to community, Paul, what do you see out
Well,
there?
I think what Samantha just said is incredibly valuable about the East Ham Brewster person. I think sometimes buyers don't really know where they want to be, or they might say they want Osterville and they really are a Chatham buyer. So I think for you to have that ability to just get the nuance or the intuition or get a sense, that's really valuable. Yeah, that's an important skill, and that's listening and goes back to that really, very listening.
So what if you're new to this business and you don't have a wide knowledge of all the different nuances of the different communities? You say it'd be beneficial to get out there and learn it, right?
Yeah, I talk to local people, like, in each town. And just, if you're not familiar with the area, if you just moved here and you're getting into real estate here, you might have done it somewhere else. Just get here and talk to people who are really in the community and figure out what each town's all about. And it will help you kind of know your market and your area and where you want to be too as an agent.
Chris, what do you think?
I'd probably line up more with Brett on this one. I bet 99% of the houses I've sold have been in Chatham, so I don't really do much outside of Chatham itself. And I'd say 99% of those people have been second homeowners. So very few year-round and very few outside of town, so I can't really speak to other towns.
Yeah.
Intelligently,
Very interesting, you know, and not that you asked, but where I'm from, I mean, we could go 80 miles one way or another, and it's just a whole different animal. The thought of making a living in one community, obviously it's gonna be based on, you know, how good you are at your job, clearly, which these guys are, but, you know, and then possibly market value of homes in that area. But I just think it's incredible that you can stay in a town and be an expert in that area. It's not always possible where we're from, but I don't know what the ratio of agents per house is, but very interesting information as far as different areas and the importance of, and the different clients. All right, so let's lighten it up just a little bit again. Let's talk about, I call this love them or hate them. Open houses, love them or hate them. Now, we're not telling you to go against your office policy. We're just asking you for a little bit of your opinion on good, bad, or the ugly. Dread them. There you have the truth. And why? Just give me a quick.
You know, I don't find them to be the most effective. You know, you always hear that story of somebody that walked into an open house and you know, made a connection with somebody and, you know, ended up selling them something for $3 million 2 months later. That does happen, and I would say, you know, if you're newer, talk to other agents in your office. Go sit in that open house, because that open house is going to expose you to more people than waiting for the phone to ring in your office. But when you get to a certain point, you know, I think you delegate that out to maybe some of the newer agents. It satisfies your seller client. But me personally, I don't like them.
Yeah, no, thank you for your honesty. Paul, what do you think?
I love them. As a company owner, I think they're good exposure. I think that some of the sellers will go to open houses, trying to sell as agents.
Yeah.
And I think that for agents, I agree with what Brett said. There's way more opportunity in an open house to get a client than in an office.
Waiting for a phone call.
Yeah, or a phone call. Yeah. I don't think people really walk into offices casually the way they would to an open house. And so I think for a good agent, an open house is an opportunity to start to build some relationships.
Is that word again? At any opportunity, right?
Yeah.
Chris, what do you think?
Yeah, so as a matter of practice, I'm not an open house person. And it's not to say I won't do them, I just don't do them. So I'll say to a seller, if you want us to, we will, to drive traffic, but it's not something that I lead with. So I typically am not a big open house guy.
Yeah. And again, the purpose of this question is not for you to go back to your broker and say, we're changing office policy here because 4 people told us to, one way or another. It's simply to understand that you can be good at what you do and have a difference of opinion and be unique in your model. Samantha, what do you think?
I'm kind of back and forth with that. My first listing was on Glacier Hills in Eastham. And my first open house, it poured. And it was just, I'm like, this is going to be the worst open house ever. This is one way to start like a career. And I actually sold it to the second person through the door who I met. And it was just like a weird thing anymore. It was like, it doesn't always happen like that. Don't be permitted. So it's never happened since. I get a lot of tire kickers, but it is a really good way to meet people who are out there. And you actually, in the Orleans area, when we do open houses, we get like these few people who always come. Some of them, they're not even interested in buying, they just love real estate and they're just nosy. But you know them, they're in the community. If they like you, they might tell a friend, you never know.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your honest answers. I think we all appreciate that. We've got, let's see, about 10 minutes left, and you know what happens at 4 o'clock, right? You're all heading downstairs? We're going to have the cocktail reception, and then we're going to announce with Pat. We're going to announce the winner of the ring doorbell, right? Okay, so we got a couple minutes left. We're going to wrap up with these 3 questions. What piece of advice would you guys offer agents on working with today's buyers? One piece of advice, one tip, one good tip.
I would say find out exactly what they're looking for before you bring them out. You know, I would never go out and show 20 houses to somebody. I just think by the 5th one, they don't remember them anyway. So the more time you can spend really understanding what they're looking for, it's going to be a better use of your time, their time, the other broker's time. I think the more that you can really, the more information you get out of them before you go out, it just becomes a more productive outing. Nothing worse than having somebody walk in the door and say there's no garage here, and they should know there's no garage here, and so it's just a wasted showing for everybody. So try to just get as much information as you can before you go out, and will be my.
And a lot of us get upset, but then we wonder, wait a minute, did they not tell me or did I forget to ask, right?
Sure,
Great point.
sure.
Paul, what do you think? For today's buyers, one piece of advice to agents.
I think it's important to listen to them and remember it's about them, it's not about me, it's about them, and let them be the ones to talk.
Yeah.
Just, yeah.
Listen more than you talk, right? Right?
Yeah,
Brett, what do you think?
I agree with that. Listen and follow up.
Do we all learn that lesson the hard way? I think so, right? Samantha, what do you think? You're shaking your head over there. Today's buyers?
I agree with them, and like Paul said, it's not about you, it's about them.
And sometimes when we get angry with them for doing something or we're disappointed, it's actually something we could have seen coming all along had we listened, right?
I'll add one thing to that because sometimes they do rely on you for your advice, and I don't have a problem telling somebody, because I focus on resale in P-Town. There's certain things that are going to limit your pool of potential buyers in the future, and I think being upfront with people, and even if it's throwing one of the listings under the bus, thank you. Throwing one of the listings under the bus when you're out together, I think it earns their trust, and just be upfront with them. And,
One of the ones you've picked and said, oh yeah, this is
the spiral staircase. We know that's a tough sell in the future. So I tell people about that. Or if the unit doesn't come without parking, there's certain things in your market that is going to limit that in the future. And I think if somebody relies on you, you have to be upfront with them. Don't just feed them a neutral answer.
Yep. Okay. Well, let's switch that one back and say, what piece of advice would you give us about sellers today?
Buyers are more fun to work with.
Buyers are more fun, okay. Nothing against the seller.
I'd say with sellers, for me, from the outset, it's all about just setting expectations. And a lot of that has to do with communication. And I always tell people, I love when they say, how long is it going to take to sell a house, right? So that's my favorite question. So, we can't control how long it'll take to sell. We can't control how many showings, can't control when the offers will come, but we can control the communication piece of it. So I just tell people on the first meeting, you tell me how often you want to hear from me. It can be every time I'm in the door. It can be when I have an offer. But I think as long as you can set that initially, that's hugely helpful down the road with sellers.
Great point. Well, what do you think?
With sellers, I think, a lot of times I struggle with overpriced listings, and it's a lot of work to get it priced properly. And I found that I have to really balance my efforts to change the price so that they don't feel that I'm just too negative, or all they ever hear from me is about the price, because sometimes they'll say, well, anybody could sell the house if they drop the price. Well, you know, put it at the right price and it will sell. But I certainly don't want them to shoot the messenger.
Delicately delivering information, right? Brett, what do you think?
I think it's managing expectations and keeping the channels of communication open. I don't generally ask them up front how they want to communicate. I kind of wait till they tell me one way or the other once we start down the process. But I always let them know when I'm going in the house, and I try to deliver them feedback, even if it's right as I'm walking out the door, because I don't like it when they reach out to me for feedback before I give it to them. So I try to deliver it to them in a timely manner. Sometimes it's hard to gauge. So even just a simple, hey, I sent a message to the buyer's agent. I'll get back to you as soon as I get feedback. If they provide it. But just keeping the channels of communication open.
Hey, you brought up something before we go to Samantha. A mortgage banker told me once, if your client has to call you first, it's all over. You always want to be the one reaching out. So I think that's what we just pulled out of that. Even if you don't have a huge item of value, but just let them know you're there.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Samantha, what do you think?
I just think you need to be like delicately, brutally honest when you're
Delicately, brutally honest. I like that with sellers, right?
Yeah, I feel like I just went to a listing appointment yesterday, and it was these folks that were really actually just looking for guidance, and they had this little cottage, and it wasn't in great shape, and they thought it was the bee's knees, and I'm like, listen guys, like, it is great, your location's great, but I mean, like, your outside is like rotting, and you have no heat. And they're like, oh, like, you think that's gonna be a problem? Yes. I do. I think the no heat thing's really gonna affect your price.
Somehow.
We looked on Zillow, I'm like, well, so it's just being delicate, but really giving them the hard facts, not being like, oh yeah, everything's great, because it's easy to get carried away with somebody else's excitement, but you also need to bring them down to earth, because you're the professional and they're looking for your guidance, even when they don't seem like they are.
So all about communication. All right, we have a couple minutes left. One last question, and somebody brought it up already. What do you know now that you wish you knew when you started in real estate? Doesn't have to be profound, just somebody walked up to you and said, what do I need to know? What do you know now?
I would say, this is going to sound counterintuitive, but I think it's great to share information with each other, right, as competitors. And it sounds sort of, but like Paul's a perfect example. If I lose a listing, when we talked, I said, here's what I can say about the sellers, here's who looked at it, here's the feedback, here are my plans. Because at the end of the day, I mean, if I'm not going to sell it, you might as well, help somebody else. And in turn, that'll come back to you. Definitely will. So if I had done that sooner and earlier, maybe I would have had more stuff come back to me over the years. So I think that's probably one thing.
Cooperation.
Yeah.
Great point. Oh, what are you thinking?
I think if I had to do it again, I would try to, that word balance that we always hear, or when you asked about turning off the phone, and my phone has never been off. So, somebody said to me recently, someone who had been in the business here for a long, long time, is not in business now, but she said, Paul, be careful. The real estate business can steal your soul. And,
It can. Yeah.
So just
Take that
watch it.
seriously, yeah.
I think we're in a fun business. We're really lucky, the business that we're in. A lot of people don't love what they do, or they dread getting up and going to work, or saying, when's the day gonna be over, when can I leave? And I don't think we're lucky we don't have that, but I think we do have to watch it. It doesn't take over.
So learn the art of balance. Some of us still struggle with that. Thank you. Brett, what do you think?
I'll reiterate what I said earlier. Be organized, especially with your contacts. Develop, a CRM, and stay in touch with people. Stay in touch with them in a genuine way, not just constantly pushing something that you're trying to sell them. But more importantly, what Chris said, I think develop those relationships within your office, even though your colleagues are your competitors, and outside of your office, because getting back to that multiple offer situation, sometimes you might be right along line with another agent, and the deciding factor could be down to you being the easier one to work with. So I think it's important, although other brokers are competitors, is to really develop good, solid relationships within your market.
It's all you, Samantha.
I guess something I wish I knew going in was how much you had to put yourself out there and be in front of people, because I don't like networking, and I don't really like going out there and sharing my personal information, and now, like, my face is on Stop and Shop carts, and my phone number is right there. Like, everybody's, like, looking at your social media, which is a huge thing, and I only have Facebook, and I don't keep it up as much as I probably should. I came from the investment side, so I was used to, like, tearing down walls by myself, but now when you're in sales, a lot of it is you and who you are as a person, and your clients do want to know you too. So that was a really interesting thing for me that I didn't think about when I got into the business.
Thank you. I'd like to thank all four of our panelists, ladies and gentlemen, Chris Rhinesmith, Paul Grover, Brett Holmes, and Samantha Chin Reynolds for sharing. I learned a lot. It was my honor. I'm hoping that you'll all join us at the reception, and if you folks have questions for these guys, maybe if they're around, you can buy them a drink and they'll tell you whatever you want to hear. Again, thank you all very much. What a fabulous day. Let's see each other downstairs and do some networking. Thank you, and thank you again.